First podcast.
Yeah.
Funny thing is that I always said I don't want to create my own podcast, so I think it's a good thing that we don't create a podcast.
No, this isn't a podcast.
No, okay.
This is just general, casual chats about interesting topics and client stories, own personal stories that could interest people who decide to watch us.
Exactly. So, what I found interesting is that lately, like last year, I had some interesting findings with clients, and you had the same. So, it is hard for us to tell about those clients because obviously it's all confidential. But I think it's cool to create awareness about what we do in these conversations, and I think that's why we decided to sit here on this couch and have a chat and talk about all the cool stuff.
Yeah, I think it's also good to talk about what we do because I don't think a lot of people understand it either.
Mm-hmm.
People don't confuse it, like, do you work with training people? Do you work with movement? Or like, what's this like emotional stuff that you talk about? They don't really grasp it. So if we talk about the stories, then maybe it will make more sense to people and it will resonate with them. And obviously we'll reach out and potentially reach out for our guidance and our help.
Yeah, so actually we want to clarify what we're doing with the conversation that we're having.
Yeah.
And I think along the way we'll just see where we go.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll just get on some interesting topics and discuss it, what are our findings for it and stuff. And yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
But we can leave this in. But do we look at each other or do we look at the camera?
I don't know. We just let us know in the comments. Let us know
what's
what
weirder if we look this way or if we look this way.
I don't know. I think we just have a conversation and whatever feels natural.
Yeah.
But let us know if you want to look at the camera. We can look at the camera, and if you don't, then we'll just watch each other. Yeah.
We just stare at each other.
Cool. So before we want to go into like client stories and stuff, I think it's sensible to talk a little bit about our background because we obviously came from a place to get to this place where we at with coaching. So I think I'm asking you a question where I'll ask, hey, what is up with you and this woo-woo stuff? No, just kidding.
What's wrong with me?
What's wrong with you? How did you get here?
How did I get here? Well, it is potentially a long story, so it depends how far I dive into it. But I guess
Don't make it too long, please.
it's kind of interesting, I think, from what I've been told. No, I'd say I personally have had mental health things crop up since I was like a teenager.
What kind of mental health issue?
I would actually say it's earlier than when I was a teenager. I had, when I moved to England when I was 8 years old, I had, obviously you know this stuff, but I had OCD issues, which then eventually turned into, intense panic attacks, anxiety attacks, which I had throughout my younger teenage years, and then it's come and gone. I actually had something called pure OCD, which basically means when it's OCD but within emotions and thoughts.
Can you clarify a little bit to me what OCD is? I don't know. Like,
OCD.
What's exactly OCD? What happens? What are like the symptoms? And stuff?
OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. So that can either manifest in behaviors or like thoughts and feelings. So I first initially had it with behaviors. So before going to bed, I needed everything in my room to be exactly a certain way before I could go to sleep. I had to say the exact same sentence to my mum before going to sleep. Like everything had to be in a specific order.
Is that like a Asperger kind of thing, like an autistic kind of?
I guess it's potentially correlated with people who have autistic tendencies. But I don't think they come hand in hand. It can come from trauma. It can come from just like genetic, I think, depending on like what your background is. But for me, I think there was a potential trauma there from moving to a different country, not understanding the language, and then some deeper things as well.
Yeah.
That came up and then that manifested into thoughts and feelings OCD, so pure OCD, like I said. And that pretty much means that the best way I can describe it is when you have a thought of doing something, but then you start obsessing about it. So for instance, you're in the car and you just think to yourself, oh, what would happen if I was to just like open the car door when you're driving? And then normal people will just move on from it and get on with it, get on with life. But for people who have this pure OCD, they obsess and have this feeling that although they don't want to do it, they have the urge to do it. Yeah. They just can't get it out of their heads. So that manifested in loads of different ways. And that eventually meant that after having some therapy, a lot of these disappeared. However, a few things still stayed. So I still had issues with like heights and a real massive fear of heights because of this pure OCD feeling. Yeah. Anyway, over the years, it subsided. Potentially it was hormonal as well. I'm not sure. There was a mixture of trauma and hormones and stuff going on. And then when I was in my 20s, when I was about 25 years old, I started getting gut issues, histamine intolerance, and I'm trying to think of what other things I had. But I had some like severe reactions to foods, as well as having a lot of issues on my left side. And this was when I was already a personal trainer. So I started PTing after my university degree, doing psychology.
Why did you start PTing?
PTing? Well, I was in a marketing job, which I started after my master's because I did psychology and then a master's in psychology of advertising. Then I went into a marketing role and then market research role. And I felt like I was in an industry where I was just trying to manipulate people to buy things. And it sat really badly with me. Yeah. So although I did it for my university degree, I just found it really interesting how you can literally manipulate people very easily through these sort of avenues. Yeah. Psychology-based methods. Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, I stepped out of that, and after I did a couple of bodybuilding shows, people were asking me for help with their training and nutrition, and then I thought about the idea of PTing, eventually got into it when I was like 24, 25 years old, quit my marketing job, and started off with that. But then when I was 25, I then started getting all these weird reactions in my body, which was like neural reactions, joint issues, gut issues, and then that spiraled into me learning more about the nervous system, about mental health and movement, and then I started practicing on myself, my clients.
And that's where you...
Now I'm 33 and I'm here.
Yeah, nice. It's been a journey, eh?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So what's the most interesting that you find from this journey so far? Like, what is the most interesting thing that you find in the last 10 years since you've been starting PTing?
Oh, there's so many interesting things.
Most interesting thing. What's the most?
Just the witnessing on myself and my clients, the strong emotional effect that you can have through changing your state within training, but also applying different movements and methods of training.
What do you mean with changing your state in training? Like, I know what it is, but...
Yeah, within the nervous system. So you've got your parasympathetic nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, like rest and digest, or fight and flight. That's just like the easiest way to explain it, but it will probably go into more detail. Yeah. But yeah, changing that state, going from either a more action-based state or...
more a depressed state, or...
Yeah, more a depressed state or anxious state to a more like active or flowy state.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So seeing the effects of that just through like very simple techniques, changing your breath and changing movement patterns, is just incredible how effective it's been. So I think that's the most interesting. Yeah. Obviously there is the energetic aspect of it, but I'll save that for another time.
Yeah. So you've been busy with this job, and we have this conversation on this couch because we think it's really important for people to know what's happening, because we think it's really powerful. Mm-hmm. What's your vision for the future? Like, what do you want to achieve with all this stuff that you, like all the knowledge that you've gained and?
Yeah, good question. I think my ultimate purpose is to open people's mind to appreciate that they can use their own body, their own vessel to optimize themselves. They don't need outside sources all the time. They can just use what they have within themselves and learn more about themselves to do that. They don't need to rely on these systemized systemized sources. I do believe that there are like natural remedies that can help you, and I do believe that the medical system has like a massive part to play in people's health. However, I think there is a missing aspect where people have been taught that they are a passive patient in their own healing, in their own health, whereas you can actually be an active participant.
Yeah, so do you think that is because we are lazy and not responsible for our own health, or is it because of the lack of education on the topic?
I think the lack of education has taught us to be lazy, and then we're stuck in a cycle. I don't think if we were brought up in a way where we understand that our body can do some wonderful things to heal ourselves, I don't think there would be as much of this lazy habitual behavior. I don't think so. I just think people are unaware. They just don't know. And it's come across as, I think there's now a massive craze of becoming like more spiritual and more energetic, and it's really, really woo-woo. People are either on the camp of, oh, I believe all of this stuff, or they're like completely on the other end of the scale and they're like, this stuff is just way out of my scope. I'm just not interested in it, and they're almost against it. And it doesn't have to be like that. You can just have an open mind to these things, change your perspective, and
And that's why we are here.
Exactly.
Okay, let me check if the camera is still working. It still is. We can just keep going.
It's your time.
Huh?
You want to go now?
Yeah, sure. You can shoot at me.
Well, yeah, just explain, I guess, how you've come to this place. Like, because you own a gym, you work with people on both a performance level and an emotional level as well.
Yeah, indeed. It's also a long ride. I've always been interested in sports since I was younger. I not obviously, some people don't know me, but I've played the professional sports when I was younger. In soccer, I was a goalkeeper, and that taught me a lot of things, to be really disciplined and to train hard, to work hard to get where you want to be. But I always was a really trustworthy person. Like, I trusted a lot of people, and something happened there where my trust was a little bit destroyed by certain people in my life, and that started to become a bit of a weird pattern, like a bad pattern, negative pattern, because I got really frustrated and angry because of that, and I wanted to show other people that I was capable and able to do stuff, instead of showing myself that I was worth it. I wanted to show other people that I was worth it. So I was constantly relying on the outside world instead of inside of me. Fast forward to maybe 22 years old, 23 years old, I completely broke down and my body was just shot. And in the meantime, I started university to become a PE teacher, physical education. Because I still had to do school because my parents told me, hey, you need a degree, and I still in the back of my head that idea that I was about to become a professional soccer player. Didn't turn out that well, but in hindsight, I'm happy that my parents said, hey, you need to go to school and get your degree. So I did that, and during my physical education university, I started to do a specialty in fitness because I already was in soccer, so I thought like, if I'm going to be a soccer trainer, I'm again in this world constantly, and I didn't want that. I wanted something new, so I chose fitness because that could help performance, right? So I was thinking and looking about becoming a performance coach. So I started PTing, basic levels and stuff, and I found the human body more and more interesting, and at first mostly on the physical side of things. So because I broke down myself, I tried to heal myself by training, and not training less, but training more and more and more, and that broke me down further. Eventually, till the point that I couldn't play football anymore. So that dream was gone, and when that happened, I started to get into CrossFit. Found a really nice sport where there was a community and people were having fun, and there was a competition element, so it was something new and I found it really cool. So I started to become this CrossFit coach and I got really passionate about it, and then you saw this pattern that people started breaking down after 2.5 years of doing CrossFit, including myself. Because at some point I was really fit, like I could do the workouts really well. However, I had to stretch myself out of my bed for like 20 minutes in the morning every morning because my back was hurting so much. And there was still this pattern of the anger and the frustration within the training, and the pattern of showing other people that I was worth it. And there was this training which I had with my old mentor, with Richard Asavage and Julian Pinot. You know him as well from StrongFit. That's how we met each other. So that's also a cool story. But yeah. I was training with them and in the coaches week, and during that workout I got really emotional, and that clicked something in my head, that I was working in a certain pattern which I haven't seen, but through that workout I saw what my problem was, and that created a certain awareness about how I was handling my life and acting towards all sorts of areas in my life. And I saw that was not a good way, because it was not helping me getting further. And then once you have that awareness, you think everything is solved, but it's not the case. That's what we had just the conversation about, the passive and the active way of handling. Like, look, you can have this epiphany, but then you have to act on it to change your perception of the world, or change your insight to become a better human. And that's where the journey started for me. And I find it so interesting that I just dug down that rabbit hole really deep and started to learn more and more about behavioral patterns within people. And I find it interesting what people do when they're under stress. Are they gonna fly because flee? Are they gonna flee? Are they gonna freeze? Are they gonna fight against it? Do they pretend it's not there? So I found it really interesting, and I still had the ambition to work with professional athletes. So I tried to combine that as much as possible. So the athletes that I now train in my gym are aware of what you were just talking about how they can change their states and in what state they are. And if you know that as an athlete or a entrepreneur, a high performing person, then you can you just know what you need at a certain point, even if you're under high amounts of stress. So I think that's a really cool way to get your performance more up, but also to, next to your performance, you can also be a human being. So what I found is that athletes are treated as athletes and they have to perform, and the human side of things is neglected a lot of times. So what I try to focus on is, hey, how can we create a better human so that the athlete becomes better as well?
Yeah, it's interesting because we've both come from performance backgrounds.
Yeah.
So you with your soccer, myself with swimming, and then going into bodybuilding. And I think both of us came also into the fitness industry performance-based, but also aesthetic-based as well, to a certain degree.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that's really common for people to start in the fitness industry working from the perspective of very much the physical, whether it's from like an aesthetic point of view or performance-based. And then it seems to develop, because if you continue to neglect the other stuff and you just focus on that physical aspect, things are going to break down
Yeah,
because you're just
eventually.
not going to be balanced.
It depends on how you look at it, because I know some people in the CrossFit industry are still able to just focus on their physical side, but their mental and emotional life is maybe already balanced. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've seen a lot of people who could maintain it for a longer period of time. But I think it's just when you start breaking down, it's like that you have to know what's happening. So yeah, I find it really interesting how that.
Yeah, but you had, for me personally, I had the issues with like my whole left side collapsing. You had it with your back. I had it with like we'll
Skin.
get on. Yeah, I had skin issues. I had issues with like piercings in my ears and my nose. I had heart issues, gut issues, autoimmune stuff. Like for you, what was there other things except for the back that you had? Because you had the back issues and you had like physical symptoms.
Yeah, well, I messed up my knee, but not really like intolerances or something. I think. Oh yeah, I was diagnosed with a burnout when I was 22 in university. But I was like, yeah, and now what? I'm tired. I know that already.
Do you think for you, for me, I had the wake up calls throughout my journey as like a personal trainer and a fitness coach, through these like intense health issues where it just sparked up. But for you, it was like you saw massive changes in like your personality and how you viewed the world and yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's interesting that like again we're both coming from this performance place, but for you, you've gone down this rabbit hole via like changing your emotions and seeing that develop, like the way that you feel about yourself and the world around you.
Yep.
For me, it was like massive health scares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I just saw that the patterns that I was having were not creating a happy place for me, and I wanted to change that. And funny thing is that there were a lot of physical stuff was happening to create that change in my life, because so the back was one, but also 2 years ago with I couldn't let my old life go, so I had a concussion, so I had to. That's another thing that happened, that I had to change myself.
Yeah.
Like those things were more happening to me. It's like I can go on and go on and go on, but I just need that wake up call through something hard.
Yeah.
Or there was a moment where I thought I could. I was pushing my luck a little bit with money wise, and then I just lost a lot of money. Like things like that happened for me to change my state, and so that's why I think it's really interesting to see what is happening in somebody's life, and can we connect that to, hey, maybe something is a little bit off balance. Because if we look at it, I think that the body is always searching for balance. We are atoms and molecules combined to each other with like pluses and minuses, and electromagnetic energy is like small, and then we become tissue, and then we become a human. So, but a cell.
Well, it goes even bigger than that. Then you've got humans, collective humans, and then
Exactly,
it
but
grows.
we'll just stay here for now. But it always searches for balance, because a cell needs as much on the outside as on the inside. So it searches for balance, and if something is off balance, it will create a signal to the body for the person to change, because it is off balance. So we need change, and that's why I find it interesting. Also the topics of like depression and anxiety. What is it? Why is it such a big topic nowadays? And we agree on that it's a function, and it shows you something needs to happen in your life. Yeah, the last few years I've just seen massive correlations between physical manifestations and emotional stuff and mental stuff. So
through your own experiences or with
both
clients?
with clients and myself.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, when I was still figuring this all out and testing a lot on myself, I found it a lot on myself, and then you try to put it on people, and then you see like, oh, this is working, or
Yeah.
hey, this is
Yeah.
oh, sorry, I just went a little bit too far. Somebody's crying now in the corner, and I don't know.
Which can be a very good thing.
Which can be a very good thing, but sometimes, yeah, you're like, oh, I didn't know that we were going there. But then now we have the tools and the skills to handle every situation, and I think that's really cool to develop that. I think it's the becoming a more human side of the coaching,
Yeah.
instead of, hey, here's a program, we do this, and it will make you perform better or look better.
It's also, we're helping people not be a victim,
Yeah.
helping people take action on themselves and in a more growth mindset to be able to, see the world as a better place, even if you do come across challenges. Like, for instance, when I got diagnosed with like a heart condition and like had skin issues and all these sorts of weird things that happened to my body, like I've looked back and I think, wow, I learned so much from that.
Yeah.
That was
But
really
that's the thing,
interesting.
right? It's how are you looking at those situations?
Yeah.
I could complain about my back, I could complain about my concussion, I could complain about getting the COVID twice, I could complain about having a burnout, I could complain about tearing my spleen. Yeah, but it's the way how you bounce back and look at it and learn from the situation that you got put in.
Yeah.
Because apparently there is something you need to learn, or there is something to learn from. And to grow as a human, and I think that's the biggest goal. So for me, what I find the most cool part about this is we have people on both sides of the spectrum. We've got the really spiritual people, and you've got the really down-to-earth people, and I try to build that bridge between both worlds, because I try to get that balance straight, right? And obviously you have these people who are more on the depressed side or more on the anxious side. Hey, how can we build that bridge between that and try to create more balance? And then from a balanced system, we can grow as a human and try and push performance in my realm of work with the entrepreneurs and with the athletes. And with general population, of course, to just become a better human with less problems in life. So I think that's a bit of our background, eh?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, should we go into more detail for all of these stories? But I don't know whether maybe it's a case of we put this up
Yeah.
for people to watch, and then, if people are interested in delving deeper into some of the things that we've mentioned, like our personal stories, then to comment, or maybe we put question box on Instagram or something and just...
Well, I think
Go
it's
from there.
just react and put comments with questions, so we know what the people there, the listeners, are also want. So
And don't say you want this in Dutch, because then you're not going to get anything out of me.
I'm trying my best to be in English, guys.
No, you're doing great.
Okay.
Like maybe eventually we'll go do some Dutch stuff, because I know there'll be a lot of Dutch listeners. But for now, let's just keep it English.
We'll just keep it English for now. And so if you have any questions, just put them in the comments. We're gonna put this on YouTube, I think.
YouTube, and then we'll like cut it up and stuff so people can see little clips. And we'll go from there. See
Awesome.
if people are interested in listening to us.
And also let us know, like, this is not something that we are interested in.
If you don't want to see us, then
yeah.
let us know as well.
And
That'd be
then
nice.
And then I will just comment to you and say, well, then don't watch.
Okay, that's it.
Bye.
Bye. Okay,
That wasn't that bad, was it?
that was all right.
That was all right.
Nearer the end.